Hey guys, it's Kevin in this review for Better Call Saul Season 1, Episode 7, Bingo, and this episode I was definitely looking forward to because, of course, last week's episode was amazing, and of course it was Mike-centric, and this episode started off that way, but eventually closed out that storyline. I have to say, this was by far the best episode of the season. I mean, we really got into Jimmy's head in this episode, and I definitely really enjoyed that, and just, this episode a lot happened, and I really enjoyed it, and we have 3 episodes left, and I can't wait, because this show is just getting better and better as it goes on, and this episode was by far the strongest. So let's just get into it. So, we see Jimmy, he's sitting on a bench near Mike at the police station, and he tells Mike to let him do all the talking, and Abazi demands the notebook, and Jimmy says he has it, and Abazi tells him that they're going to take them both into custody, which Jimmy says he got a call from Mike about threatening voicemails, accusing him of threats, and Jimmy says they found this notepad in the parking lot where he must have dropped it accidentally. So Jimmy says that's all they know, and Abadi says he's going to take him back to Philly. Now, Jimmy says he can't believe that they can extradite themselves for returning lost property. And Abazi tells Mike maybe his daughter-in-law has something to say, and he says they're going to... Now, of course, we don't know what happened between Mike and his daughter after last week's episode. We don't know what happened. We don't know if she listened to him, and he says they're going to talk to Stacy, then walks off, and Mike thanks him and tells Jimmy he can go, and Mike tells him again that he can go, and Sanders sits and asks what Stacy will tell them. He tells Mike if he has nothing to say, it will end there, and Mike says she likely won't tell them much, but says it's up to her. Sanders says the dirty cops likely got what was coming to them and says the old precinct was a cesspool, because of course, we know that the reason that Mike killed those 2 cops were because they simply were bad cops. They were dirty cops, and they killed innocent people. They killed an innocent man, and it wasn't a justified killing, so you can understand why they did that. So he leaves Mike in peace and goes, and outside later, Jimmy approaches Mike saying he was talking to a friend, but Mike says he was clearly the primary suspect in a double murder. So Mike says he knows he's trying to help, and Jimmy says they're after him too, but Mike says he's safe and he doesn't need his services anymore. So Mike says he appreciates it, but says to go home and send him a bill, and Jimmy says he will, and that's basically the end of Mike's plot for this episode, at least. I don't know if we're going to get back into it. I definitely feel like we're going to see more of this, but for right now, at least, Mike is, we're kind of putting his plot on hold, so, for a little bit, so I really do enjoy that. So Jimmy heads to Chuck's place with Ice, and his brother isn't answering. He goes upstairs looking for him, and Chuck says he's out here, and Jimmy finds him in the yard, and he's in the yard counting and makes it to 120, runs back inside, and Jimmy asks what that was, and Chuck says, and I thought it was kind of funny, he's like, what the hell was that? And one of the things I like is that, the beginning of the episode, it was very dark and everything, but they finally get back to, like, the comedic stuff, which I definitely really enjoyed, because, I mean, that's one of the things about the show, is that it's a very entertaining show at points, and I definitely really like that. So Chuck says there's a transformer 200 yards away, and he's up 2 minutes. He says his goal is 5 minutes by next week, and Jimmy asks why now. And Chuck says with the police in the hospital, he has found a way to get better and get back to work, which I thought was really interesting, actually, because, of course, we know that Chuck is only, this is a sickness, though him being allergic to electricity is a sickness because he made himself that way. So he finally possibly found a way to cure himself, and I think that's really interesting, and we saw that. Of course, we know that Jimmy is trying to get him the money and get, pay for that by the bingo thing and everything, so he says he's drawing away, and it's not that kind of life. He says he needs to be useful, and Jimmy tells him he's proud of him, and Chuck says he should be happy for him and everything. I thought that was a very good scene. I definitely really enjoyed that, and Jimmy then brings in some case files, and he says that he has no room for in his office or car, and says it won't be for long. So Chuck asks how business is, and Jimmy says it's booming, and Jimmy says he has to file 413s, and Chuck corrects him and says they're 513s. He says he'll see him tomorrow and takes off. So Chuck goes over, pulls a file out of the box. Jimmy peeks through the windows and sees it, and it looks like he said the wrong thing to entice Chuck into helping him work, because now Chuck wants to help him with his case and everything. And the thing is, while Jimmy, I'm sure he wants his brother to help him, he's just not in very good condition to do that right now. I mean, he's not really the best of condition and things like that, and he just should not be helping him. The condition that he's in, he should not be helping him right now. It's really that simple. So Jimmy brings Kim along with him to look at some photo office space, and she asks if he can afford it, and he says the seniors have been good to him, and she asks won't he miss the nail salon, and he says he can visit and get a nail salon. The office is huge, and Kim says there are a lot of offices. He says it's not a closet that smells like acetone, but says there's room to grow. He says he should make it look like the front of a Cracker Barrel, and he says you have to look successful to be successful. I think it was a very good line. So she tells Jimmy he deserves, and he shows her a corner office and says this is, and she says this is even better. He says that one is for her and asks her to be his partner, and says she has a lot invested at H&M, and it's close to partner. And he says it was just a thought. She reminds him that HHM put her through law school, so she literally owns them, and she really does not want to get out of it because, I mean, she owns them and everything, so he's pretty bummed about it because he really does want to work with Kim, and again, you can see a lot of chemistry between these two here. So back at HHM, Kim meets with Betsy and Craig, who are still in the picture, and Betsy and Craig, I'm sorry, they're crazy. They really are. I mean, Jimmy refers to them as Mr. and Mrs. Cuckoo Nuts because they really are that crazy. Because they're crazy. They're just insane. They really are. They're crazy, and they're not really good thinkers either. So she tells them that they don't stand a good chance to win at trial. They're probably not going to win this case. And Betsy says they came to them because they heard they win cases. And Kim says they've done well, just keeping them from being arrested after their camping trip. So Jimmy says, not Jimmy. Kim says they have a favorable deal. And Betsy says that's the word they use for OJ. And Kim says Craig is looking at 30 years once they file, and she says the DA worked with them and came to 16 months in a country facility if he pleads guilty. And Kim says they have to pay back the 1.6 million. And Betsy tells her that they have no money since Craig is innocent, and Betsy says drug dealers are walking the streets and they're coming after her husband, and Betsy says they're going to have to go to trial since there's no money. And to me, that just sounds like a bunch of bullshit, really. It just seems like she's trying to play the victim card, and Kim says she knows this is painful, but 30 years is no choice at all. Really, they have no choice. They have to do this. And she says they'll lose a trial and their children will grow up seeing them through bars on visiting day. And Kim says to take the deal and they can be starting over in 2 years. So really, if they take this deal, it's to their advantage. But of course, Betsy and Craig, they're not really smart. So they don't exactly make the best decision. They don't make a good decision. Because Betsy says they have no, because Betsy tells Kim that she's fired and fires her right on the spot. And Hamlin's doing whatever he can to try to convince them to come back. But they're not doing it. They quit right there, right then and there. And Jimmy is then calling bingo at his home, and I thought this was a really funny scene. I have to say, what he's doing with the bingo, I love seeing him and the elderly play bingo. It was really funny to see. The bingo cards have his law logo on them, and it says, need a will, call McGill. A woman calls bingo, and Jimmy announces she's won a cat notebook, and she's thrilled, and I thought that was really funny. So Jimmy gets a call from Betsy and Craig and goes to meet them. Now, Betsy tells him that they want to hire him and have certain conditions. They want 0 jail time and want him to guarantee that, and the thing is, though, they don't really get a say in that because they're not the ones that are going to make the decision ultimately. The lawyer doesn't make the decision. I understand lawyers can make their clients look very guilty. I understand that. But they're not going to necessarily win the case just by making themselves look like the victims here. They're not going to win the case that easily. And Jimmy asks him about HHM, and Betsy says they parted ways, and he asks why. She says they didn't like their defense strategy because they treated them like they were guilty. And they tell him they believe he's the lawyer for them, and Jimmy says he no longer does criminal cases, and Betsy says he promised a not guilty verdict, and Jimmy says times changed. And Betsy says they already paid him a retainer, and he says right, and Betsy says that's the language he used. He says he needs to go to the bathroom, he does, and what they need to understand is that they're not going to get what they want. I know that they don't understand that, but Betsy and Craig need to understand they're not going to get what they want. Just because they want to get out of this case does not mean they're going to get out of this case. It's really that simple. So he calls Kim and says he found something that belongs to him. He says the Cuckoo Bananas tried to hire him. He asks what she did to piss them off, and he says they treated them like they were guilty. And Kim says he needs to send them back to HHM, and she said it's important. She says they think they can win, but they can't. So she says she scrapped a best deal for them and says to make them understand they need to come back, and he asks about the deal. And Jimmy goes back to the table, and he says he can't take their case. He says they should go back to HHM, and Betsy says they're not going to go back there because, of course, they're not going to listen to them and everything. And Jimmy says Kim is a fine attorney and has a great relationship with the DA, and he can't get a better deal. Really, they can't. I mean, Jimmy's not in that sort of law firm anymore. He's now working with elderly people. So Betsy says they don't want a deal. They want him exonerated, and she says there's no money. So basically Betsy and Craig, if they don't get what they want, they're gonna be like, they're gonna go after their lawyers, things like that, and it's not right what they're doing, but of course they don't think they're doing anything wrong because they're idiots. So Jimmy says they all knew there's money, and he says he saw it, and he tells them they will not be able to hide it or spend it. And Betsy says that if there were any money, there would have been to be a full accounting every penny. That means what they gave him too. So she says they're in this together, come what may. She asks where they begin, and Jimmy goes to see Hamlin, and he shows him the room of files, and he asks where Kim is, and he says she's in the East Wing, and he asks why she's in a cornfield, and Hamlin says he's not going to discuss Kim and tells him to take the files, and Jimmy struggles taking down with the mound of files. He finds Kim smoking in the parking deck, and he asks if the prick is firing her, and she says her 2-year plan to make partner is now a 10-year plan, and he says the Kettlemans are crazy. She says she hopes he didn't promise them too much and said it's a loser case. She says she worked her ass off finagling the DA. And she says Kettleman did a terrible job covering his tracks. And she says he's guilty as sin. And she can tell that he is guilty. I mean, they're such bad actors. They're not good at making themselves look innocent. And you can just tell they know they're guilty. So Jimmy says there must have been a loophole, and she says not without the money, and they refuse to play it. And Jimmy reads through the files. He consults a law book on embezzlement, and Jimmy gets the box of cash down from above the ceiling tiles, and Mike then sprays a stack of cash with something and puts it onto a remote control car. And he's outside of the Kelmans. He lurks eating apples off a tree at the edge of their property and listening to a ball game on the radio. So later, Craig finds the cash on the car by the trash cans, and he says no and runs back inside. So Mike watches all this go down, and he has no idea what's going on here. And Betsy and Craig talk to the kids while Mike spies, and Betsy goes upstairs, and then all the lights go out. So, yeah, basically all the lights went out, and later Mike, what ends up happening is that Mike creeps up to the house, and he goes upstairs and picks the lock to the upstairs door and heads inside, and he turns on a black light to see the pack of money he sprayed. And sure enough, he finds glowing fingerprints on a wall switch, then on some rolls of toilet paper in the bathroom. So he sees another handprint and moves to the base of this thing and finds the cash, and he brings all of it to Jimmy, who thanks him for not heading to the Bahamas with all of it, and Jimmy adds his stack of cash to the pile, and Mike asks what he's doing, and he asks Jimmy if they're square now, and Jimmy agrees, and so it seems like Jimmy and Mike are going to be working together now, which I actually really do like, and Jimmy comes to see Betsy and Craig, and she asks if he has the news about the case, and I like what Jimmy said in there. I thought this was really good. Because Jimmy says they need to talk about the deal, and Betsy says no deal, and Jimmy says circumstances have changed. He tells her to go check on the money they said they didn't have. He says in the bathroom under the sink. They go running into panic, and she screams no, 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 no. And Craig's freaking out too, and Jimmy's waiting patiently, and Betsy's asking where it is, and Jimmy says it's on the way to the DA's desk. She calls him a thief, and he says takes one to know one. And I thought that was a really funny line because really they are thieves, and she says he stole from them, and they're going to have him arrested. He says she and Logic are not friends, and says criminals have no recourse, and says they're criminals, and she says he's fired. He says he quits. He tells her go back to Kim and take the deal, and Betsy says she'll tell about the bribe he took, and Jimmy says the bribe implicates him and says the theft was only her husband, but he'll make sure the bribe is tied to her too. So basically they have no way to get out of this. They're going to get out of it. They're going to get arrested either way, and they need to understand that. So, and I knew they were lying the whole time. I knew they were just trying to victimize themselves. So Jimmy tells them he's got nothing to lose, and he tells them they should see his office, and Betsy says it's not over. They'll find another lawyer. She says she will not be treated this way, but I like what Craig says to her, that Craig finally tells her, you know what, let's think about the kids, and he says they have to do this for the kids so they don't lose them both, and she cries and says no. And Jimmy waits in the parking deck for Kim. She comes downstairs, walks out with her. He has Betsy and Craig in the back of his car. She brings them back inside with her, and they head back upstairs. And Kim mounts thank you, Jimmy, because that's what she wanted. She wanted to get Betsy and Craig back on, her side and everything. And he goes to take another look at this spacious office that he now can't afford because, he just gave all the money to them. So he sighs and then goes nuts, kicking one of the doors violently, sits on the floor and cries. His phone rings, he takes the call, and that's basically the end of the episode. So overall, guys, this was an amazing episode, I have to say. This episode was amazing. Not a lot happened, but at the same time, a lot happened. I mean, Betsy and Craig just screwed him over. Even though they're going to be the ones that are guilty as charged, they just screwed him over. I mean, what they did to him completely screwed him over, and now he has no money. So what's going to happen with Chuck? Is Chuck going to really find a way to get himself back to work? I don't know if Chuck should be trying that because I just don't know if Chuck is in the best condition to do that. I don't really know if Chuck should be doing this. I don't know what you guys think. I personally think Chuck is just not really in the best condition to do that. Let's talk about Mike. I think Mike and Jimmy are definitely going to be working together now, and if they do that, I'm all for it because I really like Mike's character. I think Jimmy's character is really good. They can relate to each other in many ways as well, so I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen there. What's going to happen with this Betsy and Craig case? Definitely, it seems like they're going to try to play the victims, but now it seems like they're not going to try to do that, so I don't know what's going to happen. Either way, they're going to be guilty. I'm calling it now. They're going to be guilty as charged. There's nothing else really that can happen to them except they are going to be guilty, but I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen there. But overall, guys, by far best episode of the season. Absolutely love this episode. It had everything I wanted in a Better Call Saul episode. It had the humor in there. It had the drama in there. And also, what's going on with Jimmy? Why is he so upset about this? Is it because of Chuck and everything? Is that really why he's upset? I don't know. Is Kim going to be able to convince Betsy and Craig to work with her? Because, I mean, again, they really have no better deal than her because it's 2 years versus like life, so that's to their advantage if they decide to work with her because they should work with her. But again, they're not the smartest people, so if they don't work with her, I wouldn't be surprised if they say no, we're not going to work with her because they're just not really intelligent people, so I can understand that. But what do you guys think? Overall, guys, I love this episode. Best episode of the season. I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for tonight's episode of Pretty Little Liars. So I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.